So, deadlifts, they're kind of overrated when it comes to muscle hypertrophy. Now, before I get like 1,000 of you guys, 9,000 dislikes, there's like a hate war going on in my comments. People are like, all right, that's it, time to kick your ass because you just said something bad about my favorite exercise. No, take it easy. For all you strongmen or powerlifters out there, with this video, the main topic and my thesis, it specifically relates to muscle hypertrophy, the purposes of building, it's bodybuilding. It's building an aesthetic physique. Strength isn't necessarily the main focus of this video. So my hypothesis, or Igor's controversial opinion of the day, is that when it comes to building your ideal body, the deadlift is an exercise which it's somewhat of an overrated tool, and it is something which you don't necessarily have to have in your exercise portfolio. Now, one of the reasons why I say this is because I get a lot of comments from people and they say, Igor, I've got some injury. I've got something in my legs, my lower back, my shoulders, or whatever. And because of that, I have issues with certain big compound exercises. For those of you guys that don't know, the big compound exercises would be something like the bench press, the deadlift, the squat, and the overhead press. Essentially, we're talking about training your chest, your shoulders, your legs, and supposedly your back, but supposedly is the key word. So, follow along and you'll see what I mean. And when they tell me this, I say, well, I'll be honest, that kind of sucks because compound exercises are incredible because they work multiple muscle groups across multiple joints. That's what separates them from an isolation exercise, where isolation exercise, for example, the bicep curl is going to be focusing on one muscle group, obviously the bicep, and it's going to be going across at one joint, in this case the elbow, whereas a compound exercise such as the bench press is going to involve your triceps, your chest, even your anterior deltoids a little bit, and it's going to go across your shoulder and your elbow. There's multiple muscle groups working in synchronization, and because of that, a lot of times you're able to lift a lot more weight. Chances are, 99% of you, hopefully at least, who are watching this, can probably squat, deadlift, and bench press a lot more than you could bicep curl. So when people come to me and they say, Igor, I can't squat, I tell them you're gonna be okay, and you can still build a decent set of legs, but it'd be better if you can squat. It's not the end of the world. And if you got some kind of chest issue and you can do most chest exercises, but you can't bench press, again, kind of sucks, but it's not the end of the world. However, when people come to me, they say that I want to build a good back, but I can't deadlift, I actually tell them, I think you're gonna be fine. If you want to get stronger at the deadlift and you can't deadlift, then you're kind of screwed, obviously. But if you want to build a good, wide back with a nice V-taper and it's like really thick, those backs that it looks like, the only way I can describe it is it looks 3D. It looks like it's popping out. You can absolutely still build an impressive back like that without deadlifts. And that is essentially the purpose of today's video. So all compound exercises are classified as such because they use multiple muscle groups, but the deadlift is it's even further. If you've ever seen an anatomy chart of the muscle groups involved in the deadlift, it is so much. But just to name a few, we've got your glutes, your lower back, otherwise known as your erector spinae, your hamstrings, your lats, your trapezius, your quadriceps, even your abs and your core are somewhat involved. So right off the bat, that sounds really cool because there's so many muscle groups working together. But if we are specifically trying to work your back, build the thicker, bigger, a V-taper-ish, that's not a word, awesome back, I kind of think the deadlift might not. It's almost like instead of having a sniper, which can pinpoint the muscle group that you want to focus on, it's just a shotgun. It's just a blast of it going everywhere, but there's not much specific emphasis towards a certain muscle groups that you want to train. For example, with the deadlift, a lot of people actually don't know whether it's a lower body lift or an upper body lift. I've seen this happen a lot of times. People will kind of wonder, all right, I'm building my split. Do I put my deadlift on lower body day or upper body day? Do I put it on leg day or do I put it on a pull day, like a back and bicep day? A lot of times they are confused, and that makes sense. It's kind of up in the air, and some people will definitely disagree with me on this, but from what I can see with the deadlift, the two primary muscle groups involved, you can refer to this as the agonist muscle groups as opposed to the synergist muscle groups. Synergists kind of assist the muscles that are actually doing the majority of the work, and the agonists are the muscles which, like I said, are doing the majority of the work. In this case, this would be your glutes and your lower back, your erector spinae. So right off the bat, it's kind of if you want to build a big back, although the deadlift is involved, it's not specifically targeting this. And so a lot of people who want to build a really good back and they use deadlift, in reality, you're primarily focusing on building your ass and your lower back. Two muscle groups, which, don't get me wrong, are very important for development, especially if you want to get overall stronger. But a lot of times when people are bodybuilding and trying to build, a better aesthetic physique, your lats, your traps, those muscle groups are probably going to be a little bit more important when it comes to your back than your ass and your lower back. It's just like one's a bit of a higher priority, at least visually speaking. Your lats are engaged in the deadlift because they pretty much have to keep the bar as close to your body as possible. The bar never like moves like an inch away from your body, which makes the exercise a lot more efficient and it makes the exercise a lot stronger. That's one of the things you need to incorporate if you want to get up to a 500, 600, 700 pound deadlift. So the lats are involved in that, but again, they're not a primary muscle group involved in the force production for the actual exercise. They're just kind of there to assist with the exercise. This is a similar case with your traps, the actual muscle group involved in stabilizing your shoulder girdle when you're standing there with, 300, 400, 500 pounds of weight in your hands, and that's pretty much what's responsible for not letting your shoulders and your arms just rip out of their sockets. And that's why the trapezius is, it's reasonably activated when it comes to your trapezius, but in my opinion, it's nowhere near as much as you can get if you were to actually specifically focus on the trapezius with something like barbell shrugs, heavy barbell shrugs, or rack pulls. One of the reasons behind this is because although your traps are actually involved in the deadlift, they are somewhat limited by the other muscle groups involved, such as your lower back, your hamstrings, and your glutes. Me, like right now, I can probably deadlift something in the low 400s, but I could easily rack pull something in the low 500s. And because of that, you're gonna get a much better workout for your actual traps. And especially if you add in a little bit additional time under tension, instead of just bouncing up and down, you kind of like hold it there. That is gonna give you a much better workout for your traps as opposed to if you're just doing deadlifts alone, where your traps are involved, but they're like, it's pretty much they're thinking, please, we can do like 100 pounds more than this. This is child's play. And in this case, specifically for bodybuilding, the glory muscles in your back, they're not as directly involved as you would like them to be, at least in my opinion, especially if you're gonna exhaust yourself, or you're gonna spend a lot of time on this exercise, and I'm trying to build up my back, I'd rather go do something else. And if you guys wanna know some examples, in this case, if you wanna train your glutes, you can do something like hip thrusters. If you want to train specifically your lower back, you've got back extensions or reverse back extensions are an excellent option. In the case of your hamstrings, you can actually specifically target them using something like stiff-legged deadlifts, which is kind of similar, but it's a little alteration of the standard deadlift form. And when it comes to your overall back, essentially we're talking about your lats. There's so many better exercises you can do to specifically focus on this, like pull-ups, lat pull-downs, dumbbell rows, barbell rows. There's an assortment of exercises you can do. Now you guys may be saying, okay, Igor, that's great and all, but how do I believe you, right? Maybe you're telling me this, and then I'll say like, all right, I don't need to do deadlifts anymore, and my back will immediately fall apart, and my physique will degrade, and in 6 months I'll be like, what have you done to me, asshole? Unsubscribe. I mean, if you want to look at some examples in the fitness industry, which you guys may know of, we got Christian Guzman, who I believe, he's got a fantastic squat, a fantastic bench press, but the guy's like deadlifted maybe up to 4 plates. Even then, he stopped doing it because he's got certain lower back issues, which he's had for years. So he's built a fantastic physique, a great back, no deadlifts. Same case with Kinobody. I think the guy deadlifts rarely, and at most he's gotten up to like 375 or something, which is not that great compared to him having like a bench press, which is like almost kind of close to that. So in his case, his back is still pretty damn good because he prioritizes other types of exercises. For example, I think he's a big proponent of weighted pull-ups. Similar case, you got Student Aesthetics. The Hodge twins are a fantastic example. I don't think the Hodge twins can actually even do deadlifts if they wanted to, because again, they got like issues with their back, and they've built pretty damn good physiques. And they did that using, again, rows, shrugs, pull-ups, pull-downs, all that kind of stuff, and they still developed fantastic backs. And the final example is me. I have deadlifted in the past before. So anybody out there thinking like, Igor, you're just making this video because you've got a crappy deadlift or something. No, it's actually probably one of my better lifts. I think in competition, yes, powerlifting competition, I did a few for fun back in, I think, 2015 and 2016. My heaviest deadlift was 530 pounds, which is not bad considering at the time I weighed about, I think it was like 200, maybe 202 pounds. So it's not a bad deadlift. So I'm relatively proud. And I did that back then because I was specifically training for a combination of muscle hypertrophy and strength. And that is actually what I'm going to be doing going forward. So it's funny, anybody out there who thinks like, Igor, you're just saying this because you want an excuse not to deadlift. No, I am actually going to be starting doing deadlifts again in January. I come out of my competition, I've regained some strength, regained some size, and I'm excited to start incorporating deadlifts back into my workout. However, that is because I'm training for a combination of strength and size. Anybody out there who is mostly focused on size, or maybe you've got some issues, lower back stuff, you pulled a muscle group here or there, or like a slip disc or something. Unfortunately, these issues are relatively common, and you think, oh my God, if I can't do deadlifts, I'm not gonna build a good back. No, and I'm living proof of that because I have not actually gone heavy on the deadlifts since last December. So my physique has not done any heavy deadlifts for almost a year now, and I'm gonna throw up on screen right now, my back development has not degraded in any way. And the last thing I want to mention, okay, so fine, you're pretty much telling us that the deadlift is not necessarily required for building a superior, a really good thick V-taper back, but why not do it? Can it hurt? And the answer is kind of. So when it comes to all compound exercises, I believe there is a slightly higher risk of injury than with an isolation exercise. Like, chances are, if you're gonna injure yourself in the gym, it's gonna be because you're doing something like a heavy bench, a heavy squat, or a heavy deadlift, as opposed to a bicep curl. And the reason behind this is because the deadlift, even more so than the squat, the bench, the overhead press, in my opinion, it is one of the most complicated movements that you can do. There are so many muscle groups working in synchronization across so many joints, especially your lower back, that a lot of times it's very common for individuals to approach this with improper form, or they have proper form until they get kind of heavy. We've all done this, We deadlift like 2 plates, everything's fine, and then you get closer to like 80 or 90% of your 1 rep max. Suddenly your back starts to you start to bend over into a question mark. Not necessarily the best thing to happen. And obviously, yes, you should work on your form. There's no excuse for that. But I do believe there is a higher risk of injury on the deadlift than any other exercise, especially things like pull-ups, pull-downs, rows, those things, because number one, you're doing less weight, and in general, they're, for lack of a better word, they're simpler and smaller movements than the deadlift. Because of that, I believe the risk to reward ratio, it's not that great. With the bench press and the squat, there is still a bit of a risk, but the reward is fantastic because it's such a good exercise for your chest and for your quads. But throughout this entire video, I've said that the deadlift is not really the best exercise you can possibly do for your overall upper back development. So in that case, the reward isn't stupendous. It's pretty good, but it's not incredible. And the risk is relatively high. So I think if you're training for strength, you have no choice. But if you're training specifically for muscle hypertrophy and you're trying to focus on your back, I believe the risk to reward ratio is something you should take into consideration. And at the end of the day, guys, if you just enjoy doing deadlifts, go ahead. But to anybody out there who thinks like, man, I want to build a good back, I don't like the deadlift. I'd rather just do like pull-ups and rows and that stuff. Can I skip it? You can. Or if anybody out there who's like, oh, I've kind of got like a lower back injury, from like playing hockey back in the day or football or whatever, and I want to build a good physique. I've switched over from sports and athletics into bodybuilding now, and I want to build a good back, but I can't deadlift. Will I be able to? Yeah, you can. All right, guys, the last thing I want to mention is a big thank you to the sponsor of this video, Skillshare. Skillshare is pretty much this massive online community of people who can go and learn skills in essentially anything they want. So you want to be a YouTuber and you want to learn how to video edit, you can do that. You want to excel at your job and you want to gain some skills in something like Microsoft Excel, or you want to learn some kind of programming language, you can do that. For example, in my case, a lot of people probably think I would have chosen like some, how to edit or in Photoshop or Premiere Pro. No. My favorite course, which I would probably love to have had when I was getting into my job, would be something like a Microsoft Excel, beginner course or advanced course, if that's something that you're interested in. So if you guys are interested, I'm actually gonna leave a link down in the description box below. Normally, premium membership is only $10 a month, but with this link, the first 500 people that go through it are actually gonna be able to get their first 2 months free. So definitely a good resource if you guys are looking to get ahead in your career, or if you wanna become a YouTuber and you wanna learn how to video edit, that's an option. So guys, that is it. That is the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching. As always, I appreciate each and every one of you. The last thing I want to say is that this is not a video saying that like, hey, the deadlifts is stupid and useless. Don't do it. Absolutely not. Actually, my new program, which I've talked about, is coming out. I finally have a date, January 1st, 2018, the official launch date of my new program. I have a date, but I haven't finalized the name. That comes soon. But I'm actually gonna be launching 3 versions. One is a beginner version of the program, and then we're gonna have 2 intermediate versions, one with deadlifts, one without, because I always want to give options. But again, guys, you can do whatever the hell you wanna do. Just be safe, have fun, get big as fuck, and I'll see you in the next video.
Hadouken!